Cop laughs at black boy for saying his dad is an NBA star until he walks onto the scene. He was only 10, just a little kid standing there with tears in his eyes and a basketball in his hands, surrounded by grown men who wouldn't even let him step onto the court. "You can't just walk in here, boy," the cop said, half laughing, half annoyed. "This ain't some city park. This is a private facility." The kid swallowed hard. "But my dad, he's playing today. I'm supposed to meet him." The cop rolled his eyes so hard I swear you could hear it. "Yeah? And let me guess. Your dad's LeBron, right?" The other security guy snorted, trying not to laugh. "Number." "He's not LeBron," the kid said, voice shaking a little. "He's Jalen Banks." And that's when the cop just lost it. Full-on belly laugh. Jalen Banks, the Jalen Banks. The man just signed a $50 million extension, and you're saying you're his kid. He leaned forward like he was talking to a toddler. "Come on, little man. You seriously expect us to believe that?" The boy didn't say anything for a second. Just gripped the ball tighter. His knuckles turned white. "I got the same eyes as him," he said quietly. "Look." But the cop just shook his head. "I don't care if you got his eyebrows, his jump shot, or his social security number. You're not getting in here." And he turned his back. The kid just stood there. Didn't move, didn't cry, just stood. I was across the street. I had just finished grabbing coffee. And I swear, I don't know why, but something about the whole thing felt off. Not in the "that's a fake story" kind of way. More like, why was nobody listening to this kid? So I walked over. "Hey," I said to the cop. "Everything okay here?" The cop turned to me, clearly annoyed. "Yeah, just handling a little situation. Kid says his dad's in there practicing with the team." I looked down at the boy. His eyes locked on mine, and I swear, he wasn't lying. I don't know how I knew, but I knew. "Did you try calling him?" I asked the kid. He nodded. "He's not answering." "What's your name?" "CJ, he said. "Cameron Banks. My mom dropped me off. She's coming back later." I looked at the cop. "You really going to keep a kid outside like this? You could at least check with someone inside." "Look, sir, if I stopped practice every time a kid claimed to be somebody's son, I wouldn't have a job. We've had fake cousins, fake nephews. Hell, someone once said they were Shaq's long-lost brother. But this one's real," I said. "You can see it." The cop raised a brow. "You know this kid?" I hesitated. "Number..." "But I'm willing to stand here and find out. Are you?" He didn't like that. "You want to vouch for him? Fine. But when they come out here and tell us this is just some kid off the street, that's on you." I nodded. "Cool. Let's find out." The cop sighed, grabbed his radio, and muttered something into it. Then he folded his arms and waited. CJ stood still, looking down at his shoes now. Quiet, like he was trying not to breathe too loud. "You okay?" I asked. He nodded, but barely. "What would happen if your dad doesn't come out?" I asked. He glanced up. "They'll think I'm lying." "And are you?" His voice cracked. "Number, I swear I'm not." And then, right then, the door opened, and everything stopped. That man was huge, not just tall, massive. Shoulders like steel, arms that looked like they could break a rim off the backboard. And his face? You've seen it before. Everyone has. Jalen Banks, all-star shooting guard, MVP finalist. And the guy every sneaker brand wanted a piece of. He stepped out onto the sidewalk, looked around once, and saw CJ. And the way his face changed. You ever see a man go from stone cold to soft in a second? "CJ," he said. And CJ ran. Didn't wait. Didn't look at the cop. just ran straight into his arms. "Dad." And Jalen picked him up like he weighed nothing, hugged him tight, pressed his forehead to the kid's, and just stayed there for a second, like nothing else in the world mattered. And then, slowly, he looked up at the cop. "You wouldn't let him in?" The cop stammered. Sir, I didn't know," he said, "but he didn't have ID and—" Jalen didn't raise his voice, didn't cuss, didn't even blink hard. He just said, real calm, "He's 10. You left my son standing outside, alone." "Sir, we were just following protocol and you didn't even call to check." Silence. Then Jalen looked at me. "You stayed with him?" I nodded. "I just thought he looked like he needed someone." He stepped forward, shook my hand. "Thank you." And that cop, his face was red, like all the blood in his body had rushed to his ears at once. Jalen looked back at him and said something I'll never forget. "You judged my son before you even heard him out. You saw his skin, his clothes, and a basketball, and you thought, trouble." "No, sir, I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did." He held CJ close and walked back through the door without another word. And that cop didn't laugh again, not once. The next day, the story was everywhere. Social media blew up. Someone across the street had recorded the whole thing. Jalen walking out, CJ running into his arms, the look on the cop's face. It went viral in hours. NBA star confronts cop after son denied entry. People were arguing in the comments. Some were furious. Others tried to defend the cop. But none of that mattered to CJ. He wasn't looking for attention. He wasn't thinking about views or hashtags. He was just trying to hang out with his dad. And now he didn't want to leave his side. They walked into the training center together the next morning, hand in hand. And everyone moved out of the way, not just because of Jalen's status, but because they knew now that was his kid. No questions asked. CJ didn't say much, just sat in the corner of the gym, dribbling the ball quietly while his dad warmed up. Every now and then, Jalen would glance over, smile, give him a wink. It was just the two of them in their little bubble. But something still felt off. You ever see a kid trying too hard to act okay? That was CJ. Like he didn't want to mess up. Didn't want to be a burden. Didn't want to say the wrong thing. After practice, Jalen sat next to him on the bench. "You good, kiddo?" CJ nodded. "Yeah." Jalen tilted his head. "You sure?" Another pause. Then CJ looked down at his shoes. "Did I mess up yesterday?" "What?" I didn't mean to cause trouble. I just wanted to see you." Jalen's whole body shifted. He knelt down right in front of his son. "CJ, listen to me. You didn't mess up anything. That's on them, not you. But they laughed at me. I know. They didn't believe me. I know, bud. Would they have believed me if I looked different?" That one hit. Jalen didn't answer right away. Just stared at his son for a second, like he was trying to figure out how a 10-year-old could already know that. Then he said, "Probably not. And that's not fair. It's not your fault. But I'll never let that happen to you again." CJ nodded, but you could see he was still carrying it. Because when you're a kid, stuff like that sticks. It sinks in and makes you question everything. Later that day, Jalen got a call. It was from the league's PR rep. "Hey, just a heads up," the guy said. "Media's asking about the video. Do you want us to issue a statement?" Jalen sighed. "What kind of statement?" "Something calm, something neutral, like, Mr. Banks is grateful for the support and has no further comment at this time. You know the drill." He rubbed his eyes. Nah, not this time. The guy paused. You sure? Could stir up more noise. Then let it stir. He hung up. That night, Jalen took CJ out for burgers and shakes. Tried to keep things light, tried to make him laugh. And it worked. For a little while. Until a group of kids from another table walked over. Hey, are you that kid from the video? CJ froze. One of them grinned. Dude, you're famous now. Another one added, Can we take a picture with you? CJ glanced at his dad. Jalen smiled gently. Only if you want to. He looked back at the kids. Maybe later, he said quietly. They backed off. Cool, man. No worries. But that's when one kid, tall, maybe 12, leaned in and said just loud enough to hear, Bet if you really were his son, you'd be living in a mansion, not showing up in sneakers with holes in them. CJ's face went blank. Jalen stood. The kid backed up real quick, like he suddenly realized what he said. And Jalen, he didn't yell, didn't get aggressive. He just walked over, knelt down to CJ's level and said, loud enough for everyone in the diner to hear, You see these sneakers? These were mine. Wore 'em every day when I was trying to make the league. I gave 'em to CJ 'cause they remind me where I came from. Then he stood up and looked at the other kids. You don't measure worth by what someone's wearing. You measure it by how they carry themselves when nobody believes in them. The diner went silent. Nobody said a word. And CJ? For the first time all day, he smiled. The next morning, CJ woke up early. Like, really early. The sun was barely up. He tiptoed into the kitchen where Jalen was already sipping coffee, looking half asleep. CJ was holding the basketball like it was part of him. Dad, can we go shoot around? Jalen blinked a few times. Right now? CJ nodded. Jalen smiled, stood up and grabbed his keys. Let's go. They drove to a nearby gym, one Jalen used to train at before the money, before the fame. It was nothing fancy, just wood floors, scuffed up walls, and the smell of old sweat in the air. But it was quiet, just the two of them. Jalen passed the ball to CJ. All right, show me what you got. CJ dribbled awkwardly, took a shot, missed, tried again, missed again. He looked frustrated. I used to make these at home, he mumbled. On the driveway hoop. Jalen walked over and knelt beside him. You thinking too much? Just breathe. CJ closed his eyes, took a breath, then shot again. Swish. He grinned. Jalen chuckled. There it is. They kept going. Layups, free throws, even a little one-on-one. And then, out of nowhere, CJ asked, Why didn't you and Mom stay together? Jalen froze for a second. The ball bounced once, then rolled away. He wiped his hands on his shorts. We were young, he said, and stupid. I thought I had to focus on my career. She wanted stability. I couldn't give her that. But you still love her? Jalen looked at him. Yeah, I do, just not the way you're probably thinking. CJ nodded slowly. She said you left because you didn't want us. Jalen's jaw clenched. She said that? CJ looked down. She was mad. It was after a fight. I didn't believe her, though. Not really. Jalen sat down on the bench, patted the spot next to him. CJ came over, sat down. I never left you, Jalen said. Not once. Even when I wasn't there, I was trying to build something for you. The whole reason I went so hard was so you wouldn't have to. CJ looked at him. But I don't care about that stuff. I just want you. Jalen swallowed hard, put his arm around his son, and pulled him close. I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere. Just then, Jalen's phone buzzed. It was his agent. He ignored it. It buzzed again, and again. Finally, he picked up. Yeah? Jay, we've got a situation. Jalen sighed. What now? The league wants a meeting. Today? About what? They didn't say, but I've heard rumors. They're not happy about the video going viral. They think you embarrassed them, made security look bad. Jalen rubbed his forehead. So they want me to apologize? Probably. They might even fine you if you don't. CJ was watching him. Jalen met his eyes. Set the meeting, he said into the phone. I'll be there. After he hung up, CJ asked, Are you in trouble? Jalen smiled a little. Maybe. But some trouble's worth it. Later that day, he walked into the league office, alone, no lawyers, no entourage, just him. A few high-ranking execs sat at the table. Cold faces, no smiles. Mr. Banks, one of them said. Thanks for coming. Jalen nodded, sat down. We wanted to talk about the video. He leaned back in his chair. Go ahead. The exec continued. The incident has sparked a lot of attention. Some are praising you, but others think it reflects poorly on our security policies. It creates a perception issue. Jalen raised an eyebrow. A perception issue? Yes. It looks like we allowed a child to be racially profiled at one of our facilities. Well, Jalen said calmly, that's exactly what happened. They shifted uncomfortably. We're asking if you'd be willing to release a joint statement, another executive said. Something about unity, mutual respect, and reinforcing our shared values. Jalen stood up. I'm not going to lie to make you feel comfortable. Mr. Banks, no. Listen, you had a kid, my kid, treated like he didn't belong, like he was invisible. And now you're worried about image? The room went quiet. Jalen leaned forward. I don't care about PR. I care about what this tells every kid who looks like mine. You want a statement? Here it is. Do better. And then he walked out. CJ was waiting outside the door. Jalen smiled, reached out his hand. CJ grabbed it, and they walked out together. By that evening, the statement Jalen gave off the cuff in that boardroom had already been turned into a meme. You want a statement? Here it is. Do better. It was everywhere. On t-shirts, on protest signs, on TikTok reaction videos. Jalen didn't plan it like that. He wasn't trying to go viral again. But something about it hit people. Like deep. Because everyone had felt invisible at some point. Everyone had watched someone they love get brushed aside. CJ, though, he was trying to make sense of it all. He sat on the floor of Jalen's apartment later that night, playing a video game but barely touching the controller. Jalen was making popcorn in the kitchen when CJ said, Dad, why do people care now? Jalen turned down the burner. What do you mean? I told people before that you were my dad. At school, at camp, at the court. Nobody believed me. But now that there's a video, suddenly everyone's acting like they care. Jalen leaned on the counter, arms crossed. People don't always believe stories, he said. But they believe proof. That doesn't mean your story wasn't true before. It just means the world's finally catching up. CJ nodded, but it still didn't sit right with him. You think it's always going to be like this? Like what? People judging me before they know me. Jalen walked over and sat on the floor next to him. Yeah, he said honestly. Sometimes, yeah. But not everyone's like that. And the more you speak up, the more it changes. CJ looked over. You think I'm brave? Jalen smiled. Braver than I was at your age. Then he ruffled his hair. Even braver than I am now, sometimes. The next morning, there was a knock at the door. CJ opened it and just stood there blinking. It was the cop, the same one from that day. He was in uniform, but his hat was off, hands in front of him, nervous. "Hey, kid," he said quietly. "Is your dad home?" Siege didn't answer, just stepped back and let Jalen walk to the door. Jalen stood in the frame, arms folded. The cop nodded. "Mr. Banks, I just wanted to come in person and say I was wrong." Jalen raised an eyebrow. "I judged your son. I assumed he didn't belong. And that's on me." CJ stood beside his dad, watching silently. "I didn't come for a video or a handshake, just to say sorry." Jalen looked at him for a long moment, then at CJ, then back. "You owe him that, not me." The cop nodded, looked at CJ. "I'm sorry, kid. I was wrong, and I'll be better next time." CJ just stared, and then said, "You should have asked my name." The cop blinked. "You're right. What is it?" "CJ." "Nice to meet you, CJ." Jalen didn't say anything else, just closed the door gently. They stood there a second, then CJ whispered, "That felt weird." "Yeah," Jalen said. "But sometimes change feels weird." Later that day, Jalen surprised CJ with something. A custom jersey. Front said, CJ. Back said, BANKS. It was small but real. CJ held it up like it was gold. "You gonna wear it to the next game?" Jalen asked. CJ grinned. "Only if I get to sit courtside." "Oh," Jalen laughed. "So now you're negotiating?" CJ shrugged. "I learned from the best." At the next game, CJ walked in with his dad. Front row, bright jersey, chin held high. Nobody questioned him this time. No security stops, no side eyes. People actually waved. One kid even came over and asked him for a picture. But CJ looked up at his dad, smiling like it was the best day of his life. And Jalen? He couldn't stop smiling either. But right when things seemed perfect, right when the world looked like it was finally turning in their favor, that's when the twist came. Because 2 rows behind them, CJ spotted someone, a woman, staring, not at the game, at him. Her face went pale. CJ grabbed Jalen's sleeve. "Dad, that's her." "Who?" He turned. CJ pointed. "My teacher from my old school." Jalen narrowed his eyes. The same woman who told CJ to stop lying. The same one who made him sit in the hallway when he brought in Jalen's rookie card as show and tell and got laughed at for it. She didn't wave, didn't smile. Just sat frozen, like she'd seen a ghost. And for the first time in his life, CJ smiled at her. But not to be mean. Just to say, "You see me now, don't you?" After the game, Jalen and CJ were walking through the tunnel, headed toward the car, when CJ asked, "Do you think she recognized me?" Jalen glanced down. Oh yeah, she looked like she saw the truth walking on 2 legs. CJ laughed a little. "She used to act like I was always making stuff up, like I was a problem." Jalen stopped walking for a second, put his hand on CJ's shoulder. "You're not a problem. Don't ever let anyone make you feel like you are." CJ nodded. But you could tell there were still bruises in his memory, the kind you couldn't see. Back at home, things were quieter. The buzz was still going online, people reposting the story, others sharing their own, hashtags popping up. But Jalen? He didn't care about trending. He was just trying to be present, show up for real this time. Then, out of the blue, he got a call from CJ's school. Not the old one, the new one. "Mr. Banks, we wanted to let you know CJ's been nominated to speak at our upcoming Youth Leadership Assembly." Jalen almost dropped the phone. "Wait, my son?" "Yes, sir. The staff said he's been mentoring younger students, organizing study groups. He's made quite an impact." Jalen was quiet for a second, then said, "Thank you. Really, that means everything." When he told CJ that night, the boy's eyes went wide. "Me? Why me? You already are a leader. Jalen said. Now they just see it too. The night of the assembly, CJ stood behind the mic. Nervous, hands shaking a little. But Jalen was right there in the front row, mouthing, "You got this." And then CJ started speaking. At my old school, people didn't believe me when I told them who my dad was. They thought I was making it up, that I was trying to be someone I wasn't. He looked around the room, and that hurt. Not just because they doubted me, but because they didn't even ask. They just assumed. Some parents shifted in their seats. Kids leaned in closer. But then I learned something. That your story's still true even if no one claps for it yet. You just have to keep showing up. Keep being you. And one day they'll see what you've been trying to show them all along. The room was dead silent. Then, applause. Real applause. Jalen stood clapping the loudest. When CJ walked off the stage, kids came up to him, asking questions, giving high fives. And Jalen just watched, trying not to cry. Because for the first time in a long time, he wasn't just proud of his son. He was proud for him. Later that week, something wild happened. CJ got a letter, a real one, from the NBA, hand-delivered. Inside was an invitation. CJ had been selected as the honorary junior ambassador for the league's upcoming Voices of the Future campaign. It meant he'd be featured in a national commercial speaking about identity, truth, and being seen. Jalen read the letter out loud while CJ just stared in disbelief. "You think they picked the wrong kid?" he asked. Jalen chuckled. "Nah, man. They finally picked the right one." Fast forward a few weeks, CJ's standing in a full film studio. Cameras everywhere, hair and makeup. Producers asking him what he wants to say. One of them leaned down and said, "You don't have to memorize anything. Just speak from the heart." So he did. Looking straight into the camera, CJ said, "I used to think no one saw me. But I was wrong. I just needed to stop waiting for permission to be real." He paused, then added, "My name is CJ Banks, and I'm done being invisible." The crew got goosebumps. And when that commercial aired, people felt it. Even people who didn't know basketball, people in schools, in offices, in cities and towns all over the country. Jalen's phone didn't stop buzzing. Reporters wanted interviews. Podcasts wanted both of them on. Shoe brands called. Movie studios emailed. But none of that mattered more than what happened the next day. CJ was walking into school when a kid, smaller than him, maybe 10 years old, ran up and said, "Hey, I saw your video. Can I sit with you at lunch today?" CJ smiled. "Of course, man." The kid smiled back. "I'm new here. My name's Elijah." And just like that, CJ became someone else's safe place, not because of who his dad was, but because of who he chose to be. The next few months were a blur. CJ went from being the quiet kid nobody believed to a voice people actually listened to. Not because he was perfect, but because he was real. And while the world kept spinning, interviews, school projects, that commercial airing every 5 minutes, some things stayed the same. Jalen still burned the toast every morning. CJ still left socks everywhere. And they still made time every Friday night to play 2K and eat pizza on the couch. But then, something happened that neither of them saw coming. CJ's old principal, yeah, that one, reached out, asked if CJ would come speak to their students, said they were reevaluating how they approach student voices and representation. Jalen read the email twice, thinking it had to be a joke. "Up to you," he said, sliding the phone over to CJ. CJ read it, then looked up. "Hey, you think I should do it?" think you're the only one who gets to decide that. CJ stared at the screen for a long time, then said, "Yeah, let's do it." They pulled up to the school on a Tuesday afternoon, the same front steps where CJ used to sit alone during recess, the same halls where teachers acted like he was too much or not enough. Now, students lined the hallway, clapping as he walked through. Some held up signs. "We believe you, CJ." Others just watched in awe. They brought him to the auditorium, packed, standing room only. And when he stepped up to the mic, CJ looked out and saw her, his old teacher, the one who rolled her eyes, the one who told him, "Stop pretending you're special." She sat stiff in the back row. CJ took a breath, then spoke. "I used to go here, and if I'm being real, it wasn't always great." People shifted in their seats. "Some of you might remember me. Some of you might not. But I remember everything. The way it felt to be invisible. To say something true and have people laugh." He looked around. "But I'm not here to drag anyone. I'm here because I want the next kid who walks these halls to feel seen the first time." He paused. "I'm not here because I'm famous now. I'm here because I'm still that kid who just wanted someone to believe him." Silence. Then a slow clap started and spread. Afterward, the principal came up and shook his hand. Teachers did too, even the old one. She walked over, quiet. "I was wrong," she said softly. "About you." CJ nodded. "A lot of people were." She looked down. "I hope you keep using your voice. You've got something important to say." CJ just smiled, then walked out of that school with his head higher than ever. That night, Jalen and CJ sat on the roof of their building, looking at the stars. Jalen said, "You did something powerful today." CJ shrugged. "Felt kinda weird." "Good kinda weird?" CJ nodded. "Yeah, like maybe I really am who I said I was." "You are," Jalen said. "You always were." Then he looked over. "Hey, can I ask you something?" "Sure. When you grow up, you still gonna come by and beat me at 2K? CJ smirked. "Only if you admit I'm better." Jalen shook his head. "Man, you really changed." "Nah," CJ said. "I just finally got heard." And they sat there. Two voices that had been doubted, dismissed, and pushed aside. Now louder than ever. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't shouting back. It's rising so high that the people who ignored you, they can't help but look up. If you were in this situation, what would you do? Have you ever gone through something like this, or helped someone who did? Let us know in the comments. Like the video if you felt it. And subscribe if you want more life stories that stay with you.